guest. I am super excited. We got an amazing guest with us, Nathan Hirsch, who I originally came in contact with through Outsource School. He was also the former founder of FreeUp, built it, sold it, learned a ton about financials, profitability, started a bookkeeping service. And so if you run a digital marketing agency and you don't have tight controls, I'll tell you firsthand, this can massively impact your profitability. And so I'm super excited to have Nathan on with us to talk about, now he's working with hundreds of, I don't know the exact number, he's working with lots of agencies and lots of companies and sees the common mistakes that happen again and again. And so our goal on today's session is to kind of arm you with some things you don't know and really advise you on some things you need to be paying attention to so that you can avoid those mistakes. And so without further ado, Nathan, thanks so much for being on here, man.
Josh, thanks for having me. Pumped to be here and excited to help some agency owners out.
Fantastic. So I guess just tell us a little bit about the backstory, because you've had a pretty fascinating entrepreneurial journey. Kind of tell us, the journey in a short, Cliff Notes version, and how you started a bookkeeping service.
Yeah, so I was a big Amazon seller. I started an Amazon business out of my college dorm room, Wild West days, 2008, 2009, when Amazon was bursting onto the scenes. And I had no idea what I was doing from a bookkeeping standpoint. I was trying to do it myself and figure out QuickBooks. I eventually hired college kids to do it, and they didn't know QuickBooks either. And that just created even more of a chaos and disaster. And finally, I would just dump it on my CPA at the end of every single year. And that didn't really help me make decisions or understand what was going on in my business. So my first business was definitely just me as a young entrepreneur, figuring things out, getting a little lucky with timing and everything that was going on in the e-commerce space. But when we moved on to our second business, B2B, freelance marketplace, similar to an agency model, we had kind of learned that flying by the seat of our pants with bookkeeping was not the way to go. So we hired a bookkeeper from day one of FreeUp, before we were big, before we were super profitable, just so we understood our numbers every single month. And that ended up being one of the best decisions that we ever made. Not only was tax season less stressful and we were able to make good decisions, but when we went to sell the business 4 years later, we had 4 years of immaculate books going back to day one, which helped us pass due diligence. So after we sold and we launched Outsource School, and that becomes a nice passive income stream for us, we started brainstorming what else can we offer business owners. We've already done the VA hiring thing. What else do we have experience with? And my partner and I have always loved financials, and we've just seen firsthand how having a good monthly bookkeeping process has helped our company. So that kind of led us into the bookkeeping world, and we launched 2 bookkeeping brands, AccountsBalance for e-commerce sellers, because we used to be in that world, and AccountsBalance for agencies, because we just love the space.
Love it. So guys, lots of practical experience here, right? This comes from him growing a business, selling it, a really good exit, and really what was a fantastic company at FreeUp, and working with like kind of the freelance space. If you haven't checked out Outsource School, just a tremendous resource on how to hire, train, and manage VAs and kind of grow that virtual talent. And so he's taken that, and now he's actually got this bookkeeping thing that he does for agencies. So I'm a big believer that revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, right? And if you don't know your financials, if you're not like tracking this stuff diligently, it's easy for the money, who cares if you did $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, if there's no profitability, if you don't keep any of that. And so I think this is really important. So kudos to you for being on here. I want you in comments, whether you're watching this live or after the fact, put a $ if you want to hear some new ideas on how you can better control your financials and avoid some of these mistakes. And I say $ because it's going to put more money in your pocket, which I think is what really matters most. So Nathan, let's get into it. Like, what are some of the common mistakes around bookkeeping that you're seeing agencies make?
Yeah, so mistake number one is doing bookkeeping yourself. And this is a bad idea for 2 reasons. First of all, it's a terrible use of your time as an entrepreneur. Even if you're a new entrepreneur, first year of your company, running an agency, your time needs to be focused on marketing, sales, hiring, strategic decisions, not on bookkeeping. And I know so many entrepreneurs who are spending those 10 hours a month, or they're doing it on weekends, or they're trying to cram it in, and then they fall behind and they cram it even more next month. So it's bad use of your time. And second of all, and we see this all the time when we're pricing new clients, I would say 9 out of 10 times when people try to do their own books, they don't do it correctly. And down the line, you just have to pay someone to redo all the work anyway. So you kind of end up with the double negative where you've wasted your time and wasted money, and cleaning up a mess always costs more than just doing it right from day one. My other kind of point off this, and this kind of blew my mind when we started AccountsBalance, is these different bookkeeping companies that sell a course on how to use QuickBooks, how to do your own bookkeeping. Don't take those courses. Don't buy those courses. As an entrepreneur, that is not where you should be spending your time. There's so much more you can learn from Josh and people in the space of how to grow your agency. You don't need to know how to reconcile in QuickBooks. And even if you were a CPA in another life, it's still a terrible use of your time. The other thing, if you're new, because I kind of hear this a lot where, hey, I'm going to do it myself until I can afford a bookkeeper. It's got to be factored into your initial cost of starting any business. You're probably not going out of business because of your monthly bookkeeping expense. Like our minimum is $299 a month. There's people out there cheaper than us, but you will go out of business if you don't understand your numbers or you're making decisions based on poor numbers. That's going to hurt you a lot more. So make sure bookkeeping is factored in from day one and hire a professional to do it.
Love it. So don't try and do it yourself, right? There's a much higher and better use of your time than learning how to manage your books. So those are some of the common mistakes. What else are you seeing agencies kind of stub their toe on when it comes to their bookkeeping?
Yeah, so you have to understand accounting as a whole. Accounting is the big umbrella that goes over everything. And accounting is really broken up into three parts. You've got your bookkeeping, which we're going to talk about, usually on a monthly basis at least. And that's where you're going to be able to see what's going on in your business and be able to use those numbers to hopefully make decisions. But your bookkeeper is providing you an income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. They're using a tool like QuickBooks Online, which we'll talk about. And that's their only job. You're not going to them for tax advice or should I be an S Corp? They're there to do your monthly bookkeeping. Then you've got your CPA and you've got your tax person. If you're outside the US, it's called something different, but they're there to help you with tax strategy. They're there to help you with formation. They're there to help you actually file your taxes and get the best refund and help you with deductions. CPAs tend to not be that great with bookkeeping because they're doing books in a way that's correct from a tax standpoint, but not correct or not helpful in a way for you to make decisions. If you take all your expenses and put them together, that's right from a tax standpoint, but doesn't actually help you as the agency owner see what you're spending money on, what you can cut back on or increase. So that's what the CPA is for. And they have their own deadlines too. If you're hiring them for monthly bookkeeping, they're going to get super busy during April, super busy during October. Very hard for them to be in an on-time monthly rhythm, which is what you should demand and expect from your bookkeeper. And then that third piece, you have that CFO, and Ben McAdam, who's a coach here, falls into that category. They're there to look at the bookkeeping and help you make business decisions. Should I spend more on ads? Should I hire more people? What is the strategies I can take? Projecting out cash flow, projecting out sales. That's where the CFO comes into place. And each of these three categories is very different. And they might overlap a little bit. Like our bookkeepers, they know tax, but they're not going to give you tax advice. And the CPA might be able to do bookkeeping, but their main focus is tax. So you want to keep each three in their own lanes. The CFO usually comes into place when you're over $5 million a year. They could be fractional, outsourced, part-time, full-time, whatever. But at the very least, you need a good CPA and a good bookkeeper, and they should be in communication and on the same page at all times. And that's really the beginning of your finance team, having two minds working together to help you get the accurate numbers and file the right taxes.
I think it's such an important distinction because I do think even ourselves kind of as we were growing, we're like, well, if I've got a CPA, then like that's the person that's going to do this for me. But understanding that there's somebody that needs to look at every transaction and kind of tag it correctly inside of QuickBooks or whatever system you're using. And recognizing if you pay the CPA to do that, they're not going to be able to be on top of it, or they're probably going to put someone from their team on it that's going to charge you significantly more. Can you talk a little bit and if this is off track, that's fine. Just kind of let me know. But can you talk a little bit about the benefits of using like a company like yours versus trying to, use like a sub person within maybe your CPA's team?
Yeah, I mean, CPAs tend to be more expensive if they're doing your bookkeeping. I kind of mentioned they have their own deadlines that it's going to be tough for them to be on time during those months. And a good bookkeeping service is designed to give you information in a format that you can understand and make decisions off of, where a CPA's main goal is to do the books before taxes.
Pay your tax, man. Make sure you don't have any penalties. That's the only thing they're thinking about.
Right. So in all my businesses, even before AccountsBalance, I always had a separate CPA, separate bookkeeper, made sure they communicated on the same page. And usually that is the much better setup.
100%. Could not agree more. And I think just recognizing that, maybe you already knew it, but maybe if you didn't recognize it, like this is an important distinction for you to understand. And then that CFO or that fractional CFO, you said at the $5 million mark for a full-time or just for even a fractional in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very just objective number. I would say usually smaller businesses are not hiring CFOs from my experience, although I'm sure there's plenty of people that want to get a head start to that. I would say once you get over 5 million, it becomes a lot more necessary, especially if you have a more seasonal business, which I'm not necessarily sure that agency owners are. But if you run into situations where you need to be able to project revenue, project cash, interpret the numbers and make decisions, that's more where that CFO comes into play.
I think there's also kind of a third layer. So you said you've got the bookkeeper, you've got the CPA, you get like the attorney for entity structuring. Kind of in that same vein, you might, as you start to grow, want to have someone that's just thinking about tax preparation. And not just, are we paying the tax, but are we wisely doing investments and are we wisely kind of playing with our entities so that we don't overpay in tax, right? Most CPAs are just thinking, hey, how do we make sure you don't be in penalty? And they're very conservative. And, if you don't have somebody that's looking at all the latest tax codes and trying to find legal ways for you to reduce that tax bill, that could be a really big opportunity, like probably north of that $2 million mark.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a few other things. Like you could have a legal team that comes in a certain size to help you set up holding companies and different formations that can help you. You can have a 401k guy to help you create a retirement account for your company to help you put away money and really save money on taxes there. So there's some other things as well. But as a business owner, at the very least, you need that bookkeeper and CPA, and then that CFO becomes necessary. And the other stuff you can kind of add as you go.
100%. So we talked about not doing it yourself, not the best use of your time. We talked about understanding kind of the different levels and not letting that confuse you. What are some of the other mistakes you're seeing people make when it comes to their bookkeeping?
Yeah, so the right setup is key. And this is something that if you don't set it up correctly from day one, it's going to waste a lot of your time down the line. So there's two main accounting tools, and that's QuickBooks Online or Xero. You don't want to be on QuickBooks Desktop unless you have someone actually come into your office. We're in 2023 right now.
Please don't use the desktop.
Right. So those are the two. Now, there are softwares out there that are cheaper. There are softwares out there that are free, but they're free for a reason. They're cheaper for a reason. They have limited capabilities. You're going to outgrow them very quickly, and it's a complete pain to move your data from one software to another, or to have some of your data on one software and some of your data on another. Off of that, you want to make sure that you're not using a company like Bench that they're the only people that use their software, because you're just trapped on their software. They have complete control over all your financials, all your numbers. If you want to leave, again, you're going to have to migrate data. The other issue, if you're using one of those smaller tools, is not many bookkeepers use those tools. So if you want to fire a bookkeeper or your bookkeeper leaves and you're on Wave Accounting, you're going to struggle to find a good bookkeeper on Wave Accounting, and you're going to have way less options than if you're on one of the main two softwares. So pick QuickBooks Online or Xero. We're compatible with both. Usually people just have a preference based on what they have more experience with. Like our controller has more experience with QuickBooks Online, but both of them are pretty good.
I think this is a great engagement point, guys. So if you're watching this live or after the fact, let us know what your preference is. Are you QuickBooks Online or are you Xero? Like, just let us know in the comments so that we can see kind of what the group tends to be using. I think you made a really important distinction there. Some of the CPAs, especially the more traditional CPAs, have in-house bookkeeping systems. And for a long time at Plumbing and HVAC SEO, our CPA had some system and he would export an Excel file for us, basically. And we were like not working with live data. And at some point we're like, it would be great to just have this all online, have it automatically categorized, and actually be able to look at real-time information. It was a game changer for us. And I don't think any agency in today's day and age shouldn't be using one of those two platforms and have like up to the minute transaction details so that they can know what's going on.
Yeah, and remember, you don't even have to log into those accounts. Now, you should be the owner of those accounts. Your CPA or your bookkeeper should not own your QuickBooks account. You should be adding them as a user. There are horror stories of CPAs disappearing, and if they're the owner, they're taking all your data with them. There's no way to get that back. So make sure you have your own account. You're welcome to log in. Hopefully, you're not going in and messing stuff around for your bookkeepers, but really, your bookkeepers should be sending you clean reports that are easy to read. And we have plenty of clients who own their own QuickBooks account, never log in, just get reports from us. And that's how they make decisions for their business. Now, the other side of the setup is the right bank accounts and credit cards. So hopefully people here know that you should not be intermingling personal and business. You shouldn't be charging your groceries to your company credit card. You shouldn't be charging business expenses to your personal account. But you can set up personal checking, let's say a personal credit card that's only for business. That is legally fine, but you still shouldn't do that. You want to have a business checking account, a business credit card, and use a bank that allows view-only access. And this is key. This is something you should ask before setting up any new bank account. And you'd be surprised which banks don't allow this. Because if you don't have something that allows view-only access, your bookkeeper is going to have you download and send them statements every single month. That's time out of your schedule every single month to send them statements. So make sure that you're separating business and personal and that you're using bank accounts, credit cards that allow view-only access. It's going to save you time every single month. It's probably going to cost you less because the bookkeeper is going to do less manual work. And that proper setup from day one is going to really help you. Switching bank accounts is a pain, but if you have some that don't allow view-only access, switch today, make the move, suck it up. In 6 months, you're going to be so happy that you have the proper setup. It's going to be way easier for you.
I think it's important. I mean, I didn't even realize banks would potentially have a position where there's not view-only access, and I could see that as a big gotcha. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Absolutely. We got some questions here. You want me to answer them or wait till the end?
Yeah. So we'll, Ammon, I see your questions here. We're going to get to that in just one sec. Do you see it happen a lot with agencies when it comes to their financials, that they're actually using their personal account to pay for business stuff, or vice versa? I think probably more, they just run everything through the business and then realize, I can't pay for all of that stuff because it's going to be impossible to know where my profitability lies.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen everything.
And it's a tax issue.
Definitely, it's a liability issue because it pierces the corporate veil. So, I mean, the whole point of without getting too legal, the whole point of the LLC is to protect you. If your agency ever gets sued, they can't come after you personally. If you're charging personal stuff to your business, all of a sudden that corporate shield doesn't exist and they can come after you. So if you have been intermingling personal and business, just stop now going forward. And most good bookkeeping companies require that. We'll tell clients, hey, you've been intermingling personal and business in the past. Today's the last day you do that. We're only working with you if you stop going forward. And we've dropped clients before because they keep charging, I don't even have a good example, but they keep charging personal stuff to their business. So stop doing that immediately. And again, in a year, you're going to be happy that you did it. And your bookkeeping is going to be cheaper. It costs way more for a bookkeeper to go through every month and pull out your personal expenses.
100%. So we got a great question here from Eamon. I'm going to put it up on the screen. He goes, what's the best way to communicate with your bookkeeper? Is it on a daily, weekly, or monthly, quarterly basis? Like, what are your thoughts on this, Nathan?
Yeah, good question. So for me, we offer a monthly bookkeeping service, right? So we're updating the books every day, every week. But if someone's like, hey, I need to report every Friday, that's not something that we offer. So usually that daily communication is a little bit too much. What will happen on a monthly basis is, even though our goal is to learn your business and not ask you the same, what is this transaction over and over, usually clients will have random stuff that we're not able to Google or we don't know what it is. So there usually is some kind of communication. Hey, can you categorize these transactions or let us know what they are so we can mark it correctly going forward. And if you have questions about your books, your income statement, your balance sheet, your cash flow, you should absolutely reach out to your bookkeeper and make sure you understand your numbers and that you get all your questions answered. So usually on a monthly basis is a good frequency for communication, but there will be something that comes out maybe before you get your book saying, hey, I'm almost done with your books. Help me categorize this. Or we have clients who are super proactive who say, hey, I just bought this. Here's what it is. And they'll inform their bookkeeper even before the books are due.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I would assume in you guys' environment, basically it's memorized transactions. So it's automatically pulling the feed of all the transactions from the bank account or from the business credit cards. It's flowing directly into the online QuickBooks or Xero. A lot of the stuff gets memorized, which is awesome. And it's those discrepancies that they need to reach out and be like, hey, what's this, what's that, to make sure it's categorized correctly.
Right. And a lot of times it just depends how organized the business owner is. I'll give
Right.
kind of like an e-commerce example. We'll have a client who will have two credit cards. One credit card's only for buying inventory, the other credit card's for expenses. Stuff like that makes it super easy for your bookkeeper. And other people, they're just charging lots of random things and everything's different every single month. So it kind of depends on how organized you are, but it's fairly normal. Like if we sign a new client, we're doing their first set of books, to have a few questions, make sure we have things right, but then get into a good sequence where that goes down and down every single month.
Good stuff. Another question here from Eamon, also asking, overall, give me a structure to communicate updates so I can stay on top of the latest numbers regarding income and costs.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can only speak from my service, which is monthly. So by the 15th of every month, you're getting an income statement, balance sheet, cash flow. This was on my list, but you should have a monthly finance agenda on your calendar every single month. And you do not miss that meeting for any reason. Your partner's there, your team leaders are there, and you're going through your income statement, balance sheet, cash flow line by line. You're comparing this month to last month. You're comparing this month to the same month last year. And that's the meeting that you're making decisions on. You're not making it based on like your gut one morning or by looking at the money going to your bank account. You're making it based on what the numbers actually tell you. Now, like any decision making, like a problem inside your company, you need full information before you can make decisions. So if you're reading your income statement and you don't know what a line item is, you should ask your bookkeeper and make sure you really understand what it is before you go ahead and make some big decision. So that's kind of how the communication works on a monthly basis in terms of incomes and costs and stuff. You should be going through line by line. And if you have this meeting 4 or 5 times in a row, you're going to really get to know the numbers of your business, and obviously ask your bookkeeper questions if you have any. Kind of speaking of that, Connor and I have been running this meeting for 6+ years. If you go to accountsbalance.com/agenda, you can actually grab our agenda that we use. And when we went to sell our company, the buyers had a lot of initial questions in that first phone call, and most of them were about the numbers of our company. And we knew our numbers inside and out. So we were able to answer those questions. And then down the line, when they opened up our books, everything we told them on the phone matched everything that were in the books because we had that finance meeting every month. And that built a lot of trust with the buyers. So there's a lot of benefits for having that meeting every single month.
I think that's such a powerful share. And I know this is kind of out of sequence for how you were going to kind of structure this, but that's probably the biggest mistake, right? At the end of the day, you might have a bookkeeper, you might have an amazing CPA and think, okay, they're taking care of it. Yes, they're taking care of tracking it, but it's your responsibility as the owner, as the leader in the business. No one cares about your profit and your number the way that you do, right? So it's your fiduciary responsibility every single month. You're looking at, what was the revenue? What were the expenses? What's the profitability? Are there any things out of whack here that I need to adjust? Because you can't make strategic decisions if you don't understand your own numbers, right? So I think this is an extremely valuable share. He's giving you the agenda. If you do this meeting, maybe to improve that meeting, kind of have some better questions, because with better questions comes better insights. But if you're not, even on your own, stopping and looking at your financials, go to accountsbalance.com/agenda, and it'll give you a great way to structure that meeting. So great share. Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, no problem. And kind of going off of this, and it's cool if we go out of order because I want it to flow together. So I mentioned you don't need to know how to use QuickBooks. You don't need to know what buttons to press, how to reconcile an account. What you do need to know as an entrepreneur is how to read an income statement, read a balance sheet, and read a cash flow statement. This is a great life skill. It's going to help you with your own business. It's going to help you if you ever buy stocks. It's going to help you if you ever invest or buy other companies. You need to know how to do this. Now, there are 2 ways to learn. One is the million YouTube videos and blog articles, and we've got a blog on Accounts Balance. You can read, and that's one way. The better way is by looking at your own every single month. And the first month or 2, it might be confusing. You might not understand what's going on. But if you're having that finance meeting every single month, you're going to slowly learn your numbers, slowly learn what's in an income statement, what's in a balance sheet, what's in a cash flow statement. And that's going to really help you in any business that you start going forward.
100%. Love that. Love that share, kind of the methodology behind the monthly meeting. So any other mistakes you see kind of commonly happening with agencies when it comes to their bookkeeping?
Yeah, so I got another. So there's 2 types of accounting. There's cash basis and there's accrual. Essentially, cash basis is whenever you pay something on your credit card or receive money in your Stripe account, it goes on the books. So if you get a payment on January 1st, it goes in on January 1st, even if the payment was from the December before. Cash basis is when you actually get the cash. Accrual is different. It's actually when you provide the service. So if you sign someone to a 3-month contract for $30,000, but then you fulfill that contract over 3 months and you pay your people, you might split that out 10K, 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 and have expenses 5K, 5K, 5K for those 3 months. And that gives you a much better picture on how your business is actually doing. There's a lot of brokers out there that go out and they're like, your business needs to be an accrual. If you ever want to sell for highest multiple, needs to be an accrual. And that can be true, and accrual can help certain businesses make decisions. But really, this is a conversation you need to have with your CPA. Should I be on cash or accrual? And it's not black and white. Your CPA might say, hey, let's do cash for the first year, move to accrual in the second year. Accrual bookkeeping costs more. It's more work for the bookkeeper. Accrual bookkeeping is one of those things that if you're accrual in QuickBooks, you can toggle it to cash. But if you're cash, you can't toggle it to accrual. So you can do your books in accrual, but file your taxes cash, if that makes sense. Again, up to your CPA. But this should be a real conversation you have with your CPA every year of whether it's better for your business, both from an understanding your numbers and from a tax basis, to be cash or accrual. Again, I'm not a CPA. I have a CPA on my team, but I do have a CPA that I've worked with for 15 plus years, helped me sell a company. If anyone wants an intro, reach out to me. But yeah, you should have that conversation with your CPA.
Love it. Just being clear on the distinction. Can you share like what you see more common with agencies on retainer-based services?
Yeah, with agencies, for whatever reason, and again, I'm not making this decision, the CPAs are, it's more of a size thing. Usually when they get over a certain number, like over that 3 or 4, they start to transition over to accrual. I would think smaller agencies, especially if they don't have a large group of clients, they're doing more cash. And there can be some benefits from a tax standpoint being cash. In e-commerce, it's a little bit different where most of them end up being accrual just because you have inventory and all that going on. But agency, it really depends on the CPA and how he wants it done.
Amazing. Some great insights here, guys. If you're watching live and you have any specific questions for Nathan, feel free to type them into the comments. Be sure to grab that finance meeting agenda. Any other insights kind of or thought process around this that you want to share?
Yeah, so segmenting your books is super important. And this is a conversation to have with your bookkeeper upfront, because if you have different services, if you're offering PPC and SEO and all these different things, you want to know which one is more profitable, which one is worth your time. And if you have everything together, it's really hard for you to make business decisions. It's just like in e-commerce, if you're selling on Amazon and you're selling on Walmart, you want to know which one's better, which one has a higher margin, which one's worth my time. And running an agency is no different. So you want to have a conversation with your bookkeeper up front. What are the different segmentations? And if you start offering a different service, that's something you want to tell your bookkeeper so they can start factoring that into the books going forward. So make sure you work with a bookkeeper that can segment your books. It might, depending on your setup, it may or may not cost more, but it's worth doing because remember, bookkeeping is great for selling your company and getting financing, but most people don't even get that far, and it makes tax season less stressful. That's true, but the real reason to have good bookkeeping is to make good decisions every month based on what the numbers are telling you, and you can't do that if you don't segment.
100%. Great insight. I'm sure we can answer more questions, but for the agencies that are listening that are like, man, I'd love to learn how to get Nathan's team to help out with this. Like, where would they learn more about your services specifically?
Yeah, so we try to make it easy. We're process junkies. If you go to accountsbalance.com, you click get started, you fill out a pricing form, takes a minute, give us access to your current books. We'll get you a quote. The quote's 2 parts: fixed price for any setup, catch-up, cleanup, fixed price for monthly going forward. Mention 7-figure agency, you get your first 2 months free. And then if you move forward, we get the access we need. You have a kickoff call with our team, and we hit the ground running, catching you up. And once you're caught up, you're on monthly going forward. Charge you on the 1st, books by the 15th, and a easy to read format with great customer service around it.
What a deal. How do you beat that? Did you say the first 2 months free?
First 2 months free.
That's pretty fantastic. And we hear the question a lot, which is like, I want to try and find somebody that understands an agency's books and how to structure that correctly. Do you help them at all around actually setting up QuickBooks if it's a little bit screwed up, or would that need to be deferred to a CPA?
No, we do all of that. You shouldn't, if you're hiring a bookkeeping company, you shouldn't be setting up your own chart of accounts. You shouldn't be setting up anything in QuickBooks. If you work with us, we're handling it. If it's a mess, we're cleaning it up. First things first, you need a good chart of accounts. You need to clean up any past months, and we become responsible for that year. So if we come in right now and we're filming it's July, we can't just do July going forward. We need to make sure that the entire year is going to match and that it's accurate, and that January through July is good and in a good spot. And then we'll start doing July and going forward.
That's awesome. And what's really cool, guys, is if you're part of Seven Figure Agency, you know our finance coach is Ben McAdam. And he's done a lot of great trainings on how to structure your pricing, how to set up your P&L, how to make sure you're priced accordingly and increasing your price over time for profitability. Nathan personally hired Ben to help him figure out how to structure this for his clients as well as inside of his own business. So he understands the methodology that we preach. And so he, not only does he have experience with agencies, he's got experience with the Seven Figure Agency financial infrastructure. And his team has gone through kind of our thought process around how to set up the chart of accounts, how to report on it on a monthly basis, so they can really closely match exactly how we do it in our agency and how a lot of the seven-figure and multiple seven-figure agencies are managing their books on an ongoing basis, which I think is pretty amazing.
I'm a big fan of surrounding myself with people smarter than me, and we were able to snag Ben about 6 months into starting our bookkeeping business. And he was able to come in, meet with our controller, meet with our team, tell us what we don't know, tell us what issues agency owners have, and really structure our chart of accounts and everything around seven-figure agencies. So super, super lucky. Ben's an awesome guy.
Amazing. What other financial pitfalls are you seeing, or would you like to share with the group?
Yeah, so we talked about the 3 financial statements. A lot of entrepreneurs, they only look at their P&L, their income statement. You want to look at your balance statement and your cash flow statement as well. Don't get into the routine of only looking at your income statement. I know that's the sexy one, how much money you actually made that month, but the other 2 are important too. I mean, income statement is your profit and your loss, profit or loss. Your balance sheet is really how healthy is your business. Are you in debt a lot? Do you have a lot of assets? That's going to really tell you how healthy your business is. And cash flow, there's a lot of businesses out there, especially if you're offering payment plans or if you're not on top of accounts receivable and stuff like that, where you might be profitable, but you go out of business because you just run out of cash. So monitoring your cash flow is just as important as the other 2 statements. So get in the habit of looking at all 3 every single month.
Love that. Yeah, I think that's super important. And with your clients that you work with, do you supply those reports and kind of talk through that methodology a little bit?
Yeah. If anyone reaches out to me, we have a sample report we're going to be putting on the site soon. I don't think we did that, but we have a sample report that people can see exactly what it looks like. It shows trends in your business. We're not giving you advice like, hey, spend more money on PPC or something like that, but we are giving you findings and recommendations when it comes to a bookkeeping standpoint, along with the trends in your business, along with income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, with a clean chart of accounts that you should be able to understand.
Love it. Love it. So again, if you want to learn more, you can go to accountsbalance.com. It sounds like they've got an amazing opportunity where you can get the first 2 months free. Nathan, I'd love to shift gears for just a sec if it's okay with you.
Let's do it.
So you guys built FreeUp and you sold it. Obviously, there were some lessons learned in kind of growing your agency and positioning it for sale. Are there any insights you could share with the listeners that maybe had that aspiration? Hey, I want to sell this agency at some point. How should I be thinking and how should I be organizing my books for that type of eventuality?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of from a bookkeeping standpoint, you just need clean books from day one. I can't tell you how many people they go to sell their business and then they hire the bookkeeping company to go back 3 years. And no bookkeeping business is doing 3 years worth of books in 2 weeks. That could take months to get that done. And I mean, selling our company was a 6-month process. It was the most stressful 6 months of my life by far. And that's with clean, immaculate books. I can't imagine how stressful it would be if I didn't have clean books. So make sure that you have clean books up front. In terms of selling your business, a big thing that I got for 4 years was, hey, I won't be able to sell the company because I was the face of FreeUp. I was the one going on podcasts. People saw my name everywhere. But the truth is, we were not involved in the operations. We hired team leaders. We hired people that were doing customer service, filling orders, going out and getting leads. And we had multiple lead channels. So when someone came in and bought it, replacing me as the head of marketing or the face of marketing fairly easy. They have a whole marketing team, they own a marketing company, but I would not have been able to sell the company if I was the one doing the fulfillment or I was the one in operation. So if you're the one doing the PPC or doing the SEO, that's what you have to remove yourself from if you want to actually sell your company. And the best advice that I ever received, and I tell this to everyone that asks me about selling a business or is in the process, is vet the buyers just like they're going to vet you. When you're going through due diligence, it felt like we were getting 30 questions a day and having to respond to it. And we would send 30 questions right back. We wanted to know everything about the buyer, their past success, past failure, their net worth, their plans for free up after we bought it, how they treat employees. We want to know every little thing because you want to sell it to good people. Once you sell it, everything's out of your control. And a lot of these deals, it's not like you sell your business for $5 million, you just get $5 million up front. There's part of it up front, part of it's an earnout. And you need to make sure that you're selling it to good people who understand business if you want to get your earnout and structure your earnout in a good way. But you also don't want to be arguing with someone years after you've sold the company. You don't want to end up in a lawsuit down the line or sell it to some jerk who makes you look bad in front of clients that you might want to work with again, or hurt your team. You want to sell it to good people that have the same values as you. And me personally, I'd rather take slightly less money and sell it to good people than make slightly more and then have to deal with nonsense after the fact. So we couldn't be happier. We sold it to really good people who honored their word and paid us every penny and treated our team well, and still run FreeUp. But that only happened because we spent time vetting the buyers, and that was the best advice I ever received.
So good. Smart lessons and insights there. A couple other questions in the comments if you're up for it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Innova Solutions, and this is probably what might be running through a lot of you guys' heads, is why don't I just hire someone from FreeUp or from Upwork that's got some good reviews to handle this for me? It seems like that's not too hard.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely options, right? You got big accounting firms and CPAs. You've got bookkeeping service like mine. You've got people who use their own software like Bench and Final Loop. And then you've got the VAs and the freelancers. And they all kind of come with pros and cons. Like the bigger places are more expensive. They might be more focused on tax. The bookkeeping service, obviously you're not getting someone like one-on-one. Like you'll have your one-on-one bookkeeper, but it's a team. It's a small company. And the VA freelancer, you have to be really on top of them. There's no one that it's going above. So if you get a bookkeeper from AccountsBalance, they have a team leader above them. They have a controller above them. You're getting multiple levels of reviews before it even gets to them. And if you have a higher level question, if your bookkeeper doesn't know the answer, you've got a person above them with even more experience ready to go. We're also very focused on processes like integration and making sure you have a good kickoff call and customer service after the fact. If you hire a VA or a bookkeeper, you're kind of at that mercy. And from our experience, a lot of bookkeepers are not good at, they might be good at bookkeeping, but they're not necessarily good at the stuff around bookkeeping. Scaling, eventually hiring people, having processes, being good at integration, customer service. If that VA gets sick or that bookkeeper gets sick or a freelancer gets sick, or anything, or they land too many clients and those clients are paying more money, they might drop you. So you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket, even though you're saving money. And you better make sure that you know enough to, that's when you need to really educate yourself and you know enough to point out the errors because there's no one above them that it's being run through.
I think it's a great point. Lots of great reasons there. And let us know if they have any follow-up questions on that. Let's see. Amin's asking, what's your advice on saving and keeping receipts and files related to bookkeeping in case you get audited?
Yeah, so I can tell you what I do, and there are tools out there that hold on to receipts. I personally wouldn't just put them into QuickBooks. You're going to pay a lot more for a bookkeeper to do that. It's a lot of manual work, and to me, it's not worth it. Whenever I spend money on something that isn't just digitally emailed to me, I have a Gmail set up that's accounting, or I think it's billing at accountsbalance.com. And I take a picture of the receipt and I email it right to that inbox. And it's right there. It's dated, it's timed. And if I ever get audited and they're like, hey, what's this? I look up the date in it and everything's in that Gmail in one spot. Other people prefer tools that will organize a little bit more. That's fine too. But from me doing a bookkeeping standpoint, or from our bookkeepers, we don't need your receipts to do your books. We're going to have access to your credit cards, bank accounts, view-only access. Don't give, I forgot to say that before, don't give people full access to your bank accounts. They shouldn't be able to move money, view-only access only. but you should have the responsibility of keeping all your receipts either in a software or in a Gmail account. And the simpler is the better. As long as you have record for it and it's real legit receipts, if you get audited, you're going to be in good shape.
Love it. That's a nice little hack, right? Set up an email account every time you get a receipt, send it there. Now at least you've got a backup place where you can go and find the digital proof, right? Because you need to be able to validate some of these expenses. Otherwise, it will get thrown out in the case of an audit. So super good question there. Let's see, any other questions? If you guys have follow-up questions, let us know in the comments. I liked that answer, so thanks for taking the time to answer that for us. Kind of like some great insights here on the big mistakes that agencies are making with their financials. Would love it if you were on with us, and we had a pretty good group with us on live, and if you watch this after the fact, let us know in the comments, like, what were some of your key takeaways? I know, just being cognizant that you shouldn't do this yourself is huge. Recognizing the difference between a CFO and a bookkeeper and kind of the CPA, kind of where they sit, and the fact that you need to look at them differently. I think most importantly, knowing that you have to have somebody yourself to sit down and look at the financials, and you have to look at it and you have to judge it. And Nathan provided us a great resource for kind of what the agenda should be for that meeting to make it super productive. Kind of in wrapping up here, Nathan, any other nuggets or pieces of wisdom you'd like to drop on the listeners?
Yeah, I got one last one. We kind of touched upon it. Make sure your bookkeeper and your CPA are communicating. It can be as easy as CCing your CPA on emails to your bookkeeper. Some people, for whatever reason, this kind of blew my mind when we started AccountsBalance. They wouldn't give us contact to their CPA, and because I think they just didn't want to pay their CPA to talk to us or something. And so now during integration, we get that information up front. You want them on the same page. It's worth it to pay both sides to talk to each other. And like, we have a client portal where we upload the reports. You can give your CPA access to the client portal. You don't necessarily have to be in every single thing, but they should be in communication. That's only going to help you. Just like when we sold FreeUp, we had our lawyer and our CPA in communication. They should be communicating. That's your finance team. Don't keep them separate. I've also seen situations where we've said, hey, can we talk to your CPA? Can we talk to your CPA? And they say, no, no, no. And then it gets to the end of the year and the CPA said, hey, actually, I want it on accrual, or actually, I want it this way. And from our side, we're going to have to charge you to redo all that work because we've been trying to talk to the CPA the whole time. So put people in contact with each other. That's just a smart thing to do. If you have a CFO, they should be in there too. All three sides should be communicating.
Love that. Great tip. Make sure you put them in touch. You kind of have that cross communication. Nathan, thanks for being on. Thanks for all the great insights. If you're an agency owner and you're like, hey, this sounds great, I'd like some help with my books, I'd love to connect with an organization that understands the agency space and has a proven model where they can cost effectively kind of solve this for you. You can go to accountsbalance.com, get 2 months free. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you have follow-up questions, post it in the comments, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube. Nathan and I will be watching it and kind of fill in any gaps that you have. Nathan, anything else to kind of wrap us up today?
No, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I post content daily on the boring parts of business, hiring and bookkeeping. And you can check out AccountsBalance and Outsource School if you're interested in my hiring SOPs. And really appreciate everyone watching. And if I can help you in any way that has nothing to do with hiring and bookkeeping, reach out anytime.
Awesome. Nathan, thanks again. Yes, check out Outsource School if you're doing any type of onboarding and hiring. It's a tremendous resource. We will wrap it up there. So thanks for being on. Thanks for listening. And we'll talk to everybody again real soon.
Bye, guys.